That's right.
Amen. Before we get started, let me just share with you the fruit of giving. It's not the message, but just wanted to share with you that when you allow yourself to be actually stretched in giving, when you actually take your hands off of what you think is your money,
Yes, sir.
and when you feel the Lord tugging on your heart to give a certain amount or to do a certain amount, and you actually do it. And I want to make sure I make this clear. It's like we don't do it out of the blessing. We do it out of the obedience.
All right.
And when you do it out of the obedience,
Yeah.
and when you really let go, because we know we talked about how money can really hold some of us,
Right. Right.
and you really just let it go, and you realize, you know what, this is God's. This is God's money. And yeah, I know I've been saving this little bit of money, and yeah, I know I'd like to do X, Y, and Z with it, but God is tugging on my heart to give it over here. When you give it over there, I guarantee you, it won't be in short order that money's back in your hands.
Come on now. Come on.
I learned this from a guy that I worked with that, I forget what church he went to, but him and his wife, they were real big givers. And one day it was just on his heart. His wife had got a bonus check. She worked for a law firm. And she had got a bonus check for like $7,000. And the Lord just spoke to both of them and said, give that to the church. And without question, without hesitation, they took that $7,000 and they turned it over to the church. It wasn't 2 days later that he got his bonus from Lucent, which was $10,000.
Wow.
And he said, you know what, Red, you know what I'm going to do? I'm giving this to the church too.
Come on now.
He said, because every time I give it away, God just keeps bringing it to me. I don't know what to do with it. He said, it just keeps coming in. He said, I keep giving it away and it keep coming back. He said, so I'm going to give this away too. So in less than 2 weeks, their family gave $17,000 to the church. And it just kept coming back. Turned around and his wife got a big old raise. It just kept coming back.
Yes, sir.
You know, the beauty in it is that they weren't giving it for it to come back. They were giving it because they wanted to give. It was almost like they said, I can't outdo God in giving, but I'm going to try anyhow. I'm going to try to outdo God in giving. And they just kept giving it. And I learned a huge, huge lesson from him. The lesson didn't kick in for some years, but nevertheless it did kick in. And it is a fact that when you let it go, when it's no longer your God, and you're no longer afraid of not having, and you just do what God tells you to do, it's amazing what He does for you. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you. But we're still dealing with Psalms 32, which is dealing with unconfessed sin. We were very, very clear in what we were talking about when we talk about unconfessed sin. When we talk about sin, we're not talking about a breaking of the Mosaic law. We're talking about a breaking of a royal law, which is the law of love. And so when you break that law, I'm sorry, you have sinned. God has laws, and that's the one He left us with. And so if you break the law of love, then God said, I got a problem with you. I got a problem. What is one of the ways that we shared that we could break that law is if I'm walking around secretly hating somebody. If I'm walking around secretly hating my brother or my sister, and yet I'm looking at you and I'm smiling at you, and yet I hate you, and I got something against you, God's got a problem with that. God's got a serious problem with me being jealous over what my brother has. If I'm jealous over something that AC has, but I'm not really saying it, and AC's looking at me and I'm smiling at him, but I'm jealous of what he got, God's got a problem with that. That's my own secret sin. Okay? That is a violation of the royal law. That's a violation of love. Okay, if I love you, then I can't hate you too. And I can't hate you and love God. They just don't work. God said in His Word, don't tell me you love me when you hate your brother. Okay, jealousy will lead us to hate. Jealousy will lead us to kill. Okay, jealousy will lead us to divide and become a divided people. So God's got a problem with that, because what love says, love is about unity. Love is about being one. Love is about being kind to one another. Love is about long suffering. Love is about patience. So if I'm not operating in that realm, God's got a problem with me, because I'm not operating in love. He ain't talking about the Mosaic. He's talking about operate in love. Okay, and if you're not, then there's a problem. Okay, and so we were looking at that last week, and this week, actually it was later last night, the Lord laid on my heart, don't go to the I part of the Psalms 32. Stay in the first 7 verses of Psalms 32, because there is a story that we can look at that we don't realize, that our hidden sins can destroy our families. Hidden sins can cause us to lose battles when the devil is fighting against us. It can cause us not to be victorious in a battle. And I just wanted to share the story of Achan with you. In Joshua, the 7th chapter, you have to read the whole 7th chapter. Actually, you have to read chapter 6 too to get the backdrop. But what God had did was, he had told Joshua that they were getting ready to go in, and they were getting ready to take Jericho. And he gave him all the instructions that he needed to do, walking around the wall and doing all these things. On the 7th day, walk around the wall 7 times and shake and shout, you know, God is victorious and all these. And the walls are going to come crumbling down. They're going to come down into one pile, and you're just going to walk across. He says, but when this happens, I need you to go into the land.
Okay.
I need you to burn everything.
Yes,
I need you to kill the children. I need you to kill the adults. I need you to burn them. And then he turned around and he said, but there's some things I want you to keep and put in the treasury. So I want the silver and the gold and those precious things. I want you to keep those, but not for yourself.
Okay.
I want you to take those things and I want you to put them in the temple treasury. Because those are my items. And you know, in a war and in a battle, there's always plunder. And plunder, sometimes God allows us to keep the plunder, but a lot of times God says, destroy the plunder. Everything. I need you to destroy everything. So he had told Israel this. And so Joshua had given this information to Israel and told them, look, this is what God is going to do. This is what's going to go down. So when it happens, we're going to step on in there. We're going to be victorious.
Okay.
We're going to take this plunder, but this plunder goes into the treasury. Don't nobody keep nothing. All right? Don't nobody keep nothing, and everything else we're going to destroy and burn with fire.
All right.
Okay, those were the instructions that they were given. Here's what hidden sin will do. Here's what hidden sin will do. When I am violating a principle or a law of God, and in this case, it's the law of love, when I violate that, or when I violate being obedient to God. So if God tells me to do something, and I secretly don't do it, don't nobody know I ain't done it.
Right.
But God.
He knows.
There is a consequence. And sometimes we were talking last week, sometimes we're aching in our body. Sometimes our bones are aching. Sometimes we have no vitality, we have no energy. And we learned from David in Psalms 32 that his secret sin caused him to have no vitality, no energy, no strength, and his bones were waxing.
Wow.
Because of the secret sin. But then he turned around and said, but when I acknowledged my sin to God, all of a sudden there was around me a shout.
Come on now.
Of victorious. Around me, God was singing over me. There was a protection that I had. And David recognized that in my acknowledging my wrong, God blessed me. And so the thought from last week was confession is a blessing.
Yes.
You know, if you want to be favored of God, go ahead and confess that thing that you know is secret only to you. And we looked at James, and James said that, you know, confess your faults one to another. And pray. And be healed. And so confession is throughout the Bible. It's throughout the Bible. And here God left us with the law of love. Well, in this case, what he left Israel with was, I'm going to take you in. You're going to be victorious, but there's some things I need you to do when you get there. I need you to do some things with some articles. Okay? One person, and I started thinking about the church, the church on a whole, not just here committed, but the church on a whole. But that one person can bring damage and condemnation to the entire body. Wow. Now, I thought about this. I thought about this long and hard. Sometimes when a pastor has gone astray and totally violated God, and we look at him and we say, well, he's the one that God's going to get. I'm sorry. In some cases, God's like, I'm getting all of y'all. You ever had a parent that one child actually acted up, but everybody got a whooping? Yeah, everybody got a whooping. I ain't going to pick on my sister today. Everybody got a whooping for one person's actions.
That's right.
Sometimes we wonder why the church is not moving in more authority and more power. We probably need to look at how we're operating in love.
All right.
We probably need to look at what hidden thing is there that we ain't talking about, but God's got a problem with.
Okay.
The psalmist said that when that hidden sin was there, the heavy hand of God's displeasure was upon him. He could actually feel the heaviness of God's hand upon him because he knew he had violated God, but nobody else knew. You know, and folk have some secrets.
Right.
I ain't telling everybody my business. You know what? You ain't got to come to the church and confess it. But you sure better get to God and confess it. You better sure let God know that God, I know, I acknowledge that I'm not operating in love.
Okay, right.
I acknowledge I still have a temper and I have temper tantrums. I acknowledge I got no patience and I argue with you. I acknowledge I got no patience with my neighbor. I acknowledge this to you because God is saying if you have no patience with your neighbors and you don't have patience, and I'm sorry, patience is a byproduct of love.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So God's got a problem. Well, in this story, there was a man, Achan, that violated what God had given Israel to do. Achan kept some stuff behind.
Yes, sir.
Took it to his tent. Dug a hole. Put it in the ground.
Come on now.
And nobody knew about it, not even his family. Nobody knew that Achan had taken these things that God had said should go in the treasury and kept some for himself. Now he gave some to God, but not all of it.
Wow.
See, ain't that like our heart? God said, I want the whole thing. We try to keep some back, and then we think God going to bless us.
See,
No, he want the whole thing.
the whole
The whole thing. God's about 100%. Give me 100% of you, or just keep you.
wow.
And so Achan kept some back for himself. This is the part of the story that really strikes me. One of the points that strike me is the fact that he kept it back. And then they were going into battle. They were going to fight Ai. And they go into this battle because God had told them, I'm going to be with you.
Right.
God did not reveal. See, this is the part I like too. God don't always reveal to the leader the secret sins.
Okay.
So God did not reveal to Joshua what Achan had done.
Right.
So Joshua was thinking, we're good. We're going in this battle. We're going to be victorious because God is with us. God said that he would fight our battle and we would be victorious. So when he's gathering them up, he was going to have a whole troop to go. But the leaders came to him and said, you know what? These guys we're going to fight, they ain't really that big. They ain't got that many soldiers. He said, so we don't need to send that many. Why don't we just send, a couple of thousand?
Okay.
2,000, 3,000. We'll just send them to fight. And so he said, oh yeah, that's right. They got just a few people, so we'll send just 2,000 or 3,000.
Okay.
So he sent 2,000 or 3,000, about 2,000 or 3,000 men go up to attack Ai, is what the scripture says. And that's verse 3. Okay, they go up to attack Ai, just a few men. But they get to the gate, 36 men get killed. The rest of them turn around and hightail it back. The armies of Ai follow them and start wiping them out. They get back to the camp and they tell Joshua, what's going on? We just got our tail whooped. They just ran us up out of the camp.
Come on now.
Where is God in all of this? Joshua was so distraught by the news that came back because he too was thinking, wait a minute, now that ain't what God told me was going to go down. He rips his shirt off. He puts ashes on himself. He's in a place of mourning now. He's distraught over this thing. He goes before God. He says, God, what happened?
Right,
What did you do?
Right.
Did you bring us over to the promised land for us to be killed? We could have just stayed on the other side of the Jordan.
Yeah.
In his prayer time, see, sometimes when things ain't going right, we need to get on our knees and say, okay, God, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes we just get mad.
Yeah.
But no, we need to ask God, what's going on? If in your word you said if we do this and operate like this, that, and the other is going to happen, and I do that, and it's not happening. And if I'm out in the street and I'm working and I'm spreading the gospel, and people aren't being set free and people aren't being delivered, I don't need to question you. I need to question me. Mm-hmm. I need to get before you and say, God, what in the world am I doing wrong? What has happened? Why did you not respond to me? This is where Joshua was. Why didn't you respond? Why did we get slaughtered like that? And God responded to Joshua and said, Joshua, get up. He said, you got sin in Israel. The reason that I like this is because he didn't just point to a man. He says, but in verse 1 he says, but the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully. Did you hear that? The sons of Israel has acted unfaithfully. It wasn't a whole bunch of people, it was one person, but God said the sons of Israel have acted unfaithfully and violated their obligation in regard to the things off limit under the ban, those things belonging to the Lord. He said they violated it. Now see, this is the key to this. It was one man who did it, but it was all of Israel that was being accused. Now, back that up just a little bit and deal with your family. One violation of God, something that he told you not to do, and you did it anyway. That violation can affect your entire family. Not only your entire family, but maybe your community as well. Your church as well.
That's right.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
I'm leading worship and I violated God, and God is looking on the inside saying, all are committed. Why has committed sinned against me and violated what I told them not? Ain't that what he said in the text? He says the sons of Israel acted unfaithfully. See, sometimes, you know, when we talk about being one and being unified, we don't be unified no more when somebody act up. Y'all ain't a part of me no more. But God looks at us, I'm sorry, y'all still joined at the hip.
That's right.
Y'all still family.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
all of y'all getting this.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where Israel found themselves. And so God gave Joshua a way to find out who the perpetrator was. He told him, he said, I need you to gather the nations. I need you to gather the families. I need you to get on down to the nitty-gritty till you get right down to a family.
Yes, sir.
I need you to isolate it. He said, you're going to do it by lot. You're going to pull them by lot. God was in total control. He knew exactly who did it. He knew when they did it. He knew where it was hiding. And Joshua does exactly what God says. And they get down to the point where they pull up and they get to Achan. And Joshua brings Achan before him. And he says, Achan, what have you done? You can start to see the part of that story when it talks about the sin of Achan down in verse 16 of chapter 7. So Joshua got up early in the morning and had Israel come forward by tribes and by tribe of Judah, was chosen by lot. He had the families of Judah come forward, and the family of Zechite was chosen. And it gets all the way down to family, and then in verse 18 he says he brought his household forward, man by man. God isolates this thing. You know, he went from talking about the whole sons of Israel to where he's isolating it down to the perpetrator. And he gets down to the point where he says, he brought his house forward, man by man, and Achan. And he gets down to Achan. And then in verse 19, then Joshua says to Achan, my son, I implore you, give glory to the Lord, the God of Israel, and give praise to him in recognition of his righteous judgments. And tell me now what you have done. Do not hide it from me. So Achan answered Joshua and said, in truth, I have sinned against the Lord, the God of Israel, and this is what I have done. When I saw among the spoil in Jericho a beautiful robe from Shinar, southern Babylon, and 200 shekels of silver, and a bar of gold weighing 50 shekels, I wanted them and took them. Behold, they are hidden in the ground inside my tent, with the silver underneath.